How often do you see your friends? Did you know about these top 7 countries which spend their time seeing their friends? South Africa, Austria, Denmark, India, Netherlands, New Zealand, and Turkey.
Sleep, work, eat, leisure. At a high level, most of us spend time on similar activities. But just how similar are the daily activities of people across the world? This is something worth considering, not just to serve our curiosity, but because differences in the way we spend time give us meaningful perspectives on living conditions, economic opportunities, and general well-being. Here we take a look at the data. We explore some of the key patterns that emerge from cross-country time, use surveys, and then dig deeper to understand how these differences matter for people's well-being. In the chart here, we compare the average time spent across a number of common activities. The first thing that jumps out from this chart is that there are indeed many similarities across countries. This is not surprising. Most of us try to split our days into work, rest and fun, and so there are some predictable patterns. We spend the most time working and sleeping, and paid work, housework, leisure, eating and sleeping take together 80 to 90% of the 1,440 minutes that we all have available every day. But if we look closely, we also see some important differences. Consider sleeping, for example. From this sample of countries, Japanese sleep the least, averaging 7 hours and 51 minutes of sleep every day. In India and the US, at the other end of the spectrum, people sleep an hour more on average. Work is another important activity where we see large differences. Countries are sorted by paid work hours in the chart, from highest to lowest. In China and Mexico, people spend, on an average day, almost twice as much time on paid work as people in Italy and France do. This is a general pattern. People in richer countries can afford to work less. Keep in mind that this chart shows the average for all people in the working age bracket, from 15 to 64 years, whether they are actually employed or not. Differences in demographics, education, and economic prosperity all contribute to these inequalities in work and time use. But what's clear in the chart here is that there are also some differences in time use that are not well explained by economic or demographic differences. In the UK, for example, people spend more time working than in France, but in both countries, people report spending a similar amount of time on leisure activities. Cultural differences are likely to play a role here. The French seem to spend much more time eating than the British, and in this respect, the data actually goes in line with stereotypes about food culture. People in France, Greece, Italy, and Spain report spending more time eating than people in most other European countries. The country where people spend the least time eating and drinking is the USA, 63 minutes. Going beyond national averages reveals important within-country inequalities. The gender gap in leisure time, for example, is a key dimension along which large inequalities exist. As we can see, in all countries, the average leisure time for men is higher than for women. All bubbles are below the diagonal line, but in some countries, the gaps are much larger. A key factor driving these differences in leisure time is the gender gap in unpaid work. As we explain in detail in a companion post, women are responsible for a disproportionate amount of unpaid work and have less leisure as a result. Every single one of us has the same time budget. 24 hours per day and 365 days per year. But of course, not all of us can choose to spend time on the activities that we enjoy most. Differences in our freedom to allocate time to the things we enjoy is the main reason why time use data is important for studying living conditions. We see that the most enjoyed activities involve rest or leisure activities, such as eating out, sleeping, going to sports events, playing computer games, or attending cultural performances. The activities receiving the lowest ratings include doing school homework, looking for a job, or doing housework. The activity where people show the greatest variation in enjoyment is working a second job. This likely reflects the difference between people who work a second job because they want to, and those who work a second job because they have to. So, what do we learn from this? The fact that there is a very clear and predictable pattern in the enjoyment of activities suggests that differences in time use do, indeed, give us meaningful perspectives on living conditions and economic opportunities. In countries where people do more paid and unpaid work and have less time for leisure, their enjoyment and happiness and life satisfaction levels are likely to be lower.
If you like our contents, please hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel.
Courtesy, ourworldindata.org.